The morning sun rose over New Haven like it had for the past 15 years since humans first arrived on this planet. Jake Morrison stood on his office balcony, watching children walk to school along the tree-lined streets below. As governor of this colony world, he took pride in what they had built here. 2 million humans now called New Haven home, and nearly half of them were young people born right here under alien skies. Jake remembered when he first stepped off the transport ship all those years ago. The planet was empty then, just rolling. Green hills and crystal-clear rivers. Now there were cities, farms, schools, and hospitals. The colonists had turned this world into something beautiful and peaceful. Down in the streets, 8-year-old Bobby Chen ran past the government building, his backpack bouncing as he hurried to catch up with his friends. His mother called after, him in both English and the Old Earth language her grandparents had spoken. This was what Jake loved most about New Haven. People from all over Earth had come here to build something new together. The school bell rang across the settlement, and Jake smiled as he watched hundreds of children disappear into the large white building that served as Central School Complex. Teachers from different Earth cultures worked together to give these kids the best education possible. They learned about their human heritage while also studying the new world they were growing up on. Jake's assistant, Mary Johnson, knocked on his office door. She was a young woman who had been born on New Haven and had never seen Earth except in pictures and videos. Like many of the colony-born humans, she was tall and strong from growing up in the planet's slightly lighter gravity. "Governor Morrison, the Zilani traders are requesting permission to land," Mary said. "They have medical supplies and want to trade for our grain harvest." Jake nodded. The Zilani were good neighbors. These peaceful aliens had blue-green skin and large eyes, and they had been trading with New Haven for 5 years now. Unlike humans, they were not interested in taking over new worlds. They just wanted to trade and learn about different cultures. "Tell them they can use Landing Pad 3, Jake said, "and ask Dr. Lisa Carter to meet them. She's been waiting for those medical supplies." Dr. Carter ran the colony's main hospital. She was a small woman with gray hair who had left a comfortable life on Earth to help frontier families. The Zilani brought medicines that worked better than anything humans could make, and in return, New Haven provided them with food crops that could grow on their desert homeworld. Later that morning, Jake walked through the market district. Human vendors sold fresh vegetables grown in New Haven soil. Children played games between the stalls while their parents shopped. An elderly man named Peter Davis sat on a bench, telling stories about Earth to a group of wide-eyed kids. "Back on Earth, we had these big cities with buildings that reached up to the clouds," Peter was saying. "But I like it better here. Here, we know all our neighbors." Jake continued his walk to the communications center, where Carl Wright monitored messages from other human colonies and Earth itself. Carl was a former military man who had settled on New Haven after his service ended. He kept the colony connected to the rest of human space. "Anything interesting today, Carl?" Jake asked. "Just the usual trade reports and family messages," Carl replied. "Oh, and there's a scientific expedition coming through next month. They want to study the mineral deposits in the northern mountains." Jake approved the expedition and was about to leave when Carl's equipment began making urgent beeping sounds. Carl's expression changed as he read the incoming message. "Governor, we have unknown ships approaching the system," Carl said, his voice becoming serious. "They're big, and there are a lot of them." Jake felt his stomach tighten. New Haven had no military defenses except for a few security officers with basic weapons. The colony had never needed more protection because this part of space was supposed to be safe. "Can you identify them?" Jake asked. Carl worked at his controls for several minutes before his face went pale. "Sir, these are Korthak Empire ships. I count at least 50 vessels, including what looks like a dreadnought-class warship." Jake had heard of the Korthak Empire. They were a race of warlike reptilian aliens who had been conquering planets for hundreds of years. But New Haven was far from their territory, and humans had never had any contact with them before. "How long until they reach orbit?" Jake asked. "Less than 2 hours," Carl replied. Jake immediately called an emergency meeting of the Colony Council. The 5 other leaders who helped run New Haven gathered in the government building's main conference room. Dr. Carter arrived, still wearing her medical coat. Tom Bradley, who managed the colony's farms, looked worried. Sandra Lee, the head of education, kept glancing toward the school where her own children were learning. Mike Rodriguez, who ran the engineering department, was already thinking about evacuation procedures. "We need to contact Earth immediately," said Dr. Carter. "They need to know what's happening here." "It will take weeks for any help to arrive," Tom pointed out. "We're too far from the main shipping routes." Jake made the hardest decision of his life. "We're going to try to talk to them. Maybe this is just a misunderstanding. Maybe they don't know we're here." But deep down, Jake knew that 50 warships didn't travel across space by accident. The Korthak had come to New Haven for a reason, and Jake was afraid he already knew what that reason was. The massive alien ships appeared in the sky above New Haven 3 hours later, blocking out the sun with their dark hulls. The first Korthak shuttle landed in the center of New Haven's main square at exactly noon. Jake Morrison watched from his office window as the large metal craft settled onto the ground with a loud hiss. Black smoke poured from its engines, killing the grass underneath. A ramp lowered from the shuttle, and 3 creatures walked out. Jake had never seen a Korthak before, but he recognized them from the descriptions in Earth's database. They stood, 8 feet tall on 2 legs, with dark green scales covering their bodies. Their heads were long and narrow like ancient Earth lizards, with yellow eyes that seemed to look right through everything. The leader wore red armor with strange symbols carved into the metal. He carried a weapon that looked like a cross between a rifle and a sword. The other 2 Korthak stayed behind him, their own weapons ready. Jake left his office and walked to the square. Several colonists had gathered to watch, but they kept their distance. Children peeked out from behind their parents, curious but scared. The alien visitors looked nothing like the friendly Zilani traders who came here regularly. "I am Governor Jake Morrison," Jake said when he reached the aliens. "Welcome to New Haven. We were not expecting visitors today." The lead Korthak studied Jake for a long moment before speaking. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "I am war leader Vextar of the Korthak Empire," the alien said. "This world now belongs to us. You will remove all humans immediately." Jake felt his heart sink. He had hoped this was some kind of mistake, but the alien's words were clear. "War leader Vextar, we have built our homes here for 15 years. Our children were born on this planet. Surely we can find a way to share this world peacefully." Vextar made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like a growl. "Humans are weak. Weak creatures do not deserve planets. You have 6 hours to leave this world completely. Take nothing except what you can carry." 6 hours. Jake could not hide his shock. "We have 2 million people here. Many are children, elderly, and sick. We need more time to evacuate them safely." 6 hours, Vextar repeated. "After that, any humans remaining will be considered invaders and dealt with accordingly." The war leader turned and walked back to his shuttle without another word. The craft lifted off and returned to the massive ships waiting in orbit. Jake ran back to the government building where his council was already gathering. Carl Wright was sending emergency messages to every human colony and Earth itself, begging for help that everyone knew would not arrive in time. "How many transport ships do we have?" Jake asked Mike Rodriguez. 12 large transports and about 30 smaller craft, Mike replied. "Even if we pack them beyond safe capacity, we can maybe move 400,000 people." Dr. Carter was already coordinating with the hospital. "We have 3,000 patients who cannot be moved safely. Some are in surgery right now. Others are too sick to survive a long journey in cramped ships." Sandra Lee looked up from her communication device. "The schools are asking what to do. Do we try to evacuate the children first?" Jake made another impossible decision. "Yes. Get all the children to the central school complex. We'll use that as our main evacuation point. If we can save anyone, it has to be the young ones." The next 6 hours were chaos. Families packed what they could carry while transport ships landed and took off as fast as possible. Parents said goodbye to children, not knowing if they would ever see them again. The lucky ones who got seats on the early flights watched their Friends and neighbors disappear below as the ships climb toward space. But there were not enough ships. There never could have been enough ships. As the deadline approached, 800,000 children waited at the central school complex. Teachers and parent volunteers tried to keep them calm, but everyone could feel the fear in the air. Some of the older kids understood what was happening. The younger ones just knew their parents looked scared. Dr. Carter was at the school, helping to organize the evacuation when she saw the Korthak ships begin to move in orbit. She grabbed her communication device and started recording a message. "This is Dr. Lisa Carter on New Haven. The Korthak Empire is attacking our colony. They gave us 6 hours to evacuate 2 million people. We tried to save the children first, but there wasn't enough time. The first explosions hit the outer parts of the city. Buildings that had taken years to build disappeared in seconds. The Korthak were not just driving humans away. They were destroying everything humans had created." Ground Commander Zekmor led the Korthak forces that landed around the school. He was even larger than Vextar, with scars covering his scaled face. Unlike his leader, Zekmor enjoyed the fear he saw in human eyes. "Humans breed too quickly," he told his soldiers. "If we let the young ones live, they will grow up and try to take back this world. Better to end the problem now." Dr. Carter continued her desperate transmission as Korthak soldiers surrounded the school building. "They're targeting the children. 800,000 kids are trapped here. Someone has to know what happened here. Someone has to remember them." The attack on the central school complex lasted only minutes. The Korthak used weapons that turned the entire building into ash and smoke. There were no survivors. Jake Morrison watched from his transport ship as his world burned below. He had managed to escape with fewer than 50,000 colonists. Everyone else was gone. His home was gone. The children were gone. But Dr. Carter's message had been sent across human space before the communication towers were destroyed. Every human colony, every Earth city, every person would soon know what the Korthak Empire had done to New Haven. As Jake's ship jumped to hyperspace, he wondered if humanity would remember the 800,000 children who died that day, or if New Haven would just become another forgotten tragedy in the vast darkness between the stars. The message from Dr. Lisa Carter reached Earth 3 days after New Haven burned. President Richard Hayes was eating breakfast with his family when his emergency communication device started beeping. He had been president for 6 years, but he had never heard the urgent tone it was making now. His wife Ellen looked worried as he answered the call. Their own children, ages 12 and 15, stopped eating their cereal and watched their father's face change from calm to horrified. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," said General Frank Wilson, head of Earth's military communications. "We received a transmission from the New Haven colony. It's very bad, sir." 20 minutes later, President Hayes sat in the emergency meeting room deep beneath the Earth government building. Around the table were the most important leaders in human space. Admiral Kate Sullivan commanded all of Earth's military forces. Dr. Henry Parks was the government's expert on alien species. Senator Bill Murphy represented the outer colonies in the human government. General Wilson played Dr. Carter's message for the group. The recording was broken and filled with static, but her words were clear enough. The room fell silent as they watched grainy video footage of Korthak soldiers surrounding the school building. 800,000 children, Admiral Sullivan said quietly. "They killed 800,000 human children." Dr. Parks leaned forward in his chair. He was an older man who had spent his life studying different alien races. "The Korthak psychology is simple," he explained. "They see mercy as weakness. They believe that destroying an enemy's young prevents future problems. To them, this was a logical military action." President Hayes felt sick. He thought about his own children upstairs, probably getting ready for school right now. He thought about every parent on New Haven who would never see their kids again. "What are our military options?" the president asked Admiral Sullivan. Admiral Sullivan looked uncomfortable. "Sir, we have maybe 200 combat ships spread across 30 colonies. The Korthak Empire controls thousands of worlds. Their fleet has at least 10,000 warships. If we attack them directly, they'll destroy every human colony in space." "Senator," Murphy spoke up. Some of the outer colonies are already talking about surrender. They're afraid the Korthak will come for them next. Surrender? President Hayes stood up from his chair. After what they did to those children, we don't surrender. To child killers. Dr. Parks cleared his throat. Sir, there might be another way. For the past 20 years, our scientists have been working on defensive technologies. Projects that were designed to protect human colonies from exactly this kind of threat. What kind of technologies? Admiral Sullivan asked. Classified ones, Dr. Parks replied. The kind we hoped we would never need to use. President Hayes made his decision. I want to see everything, every secret project, every hidden weapon, every piece of technology we've been developing, and I want to send a message to every human colony and settlement. 6 hours later, President Hayes appeared on communication screens across human space. Millions of people on dozens of worlds stopped what they were doing to listen to their leader. Citizens of Earth and the human colonies, the president began. 3 days ago, the Korthak Empire attacked the peaceful colony of New Haven. They murdered nearly 2 million innocent people, including 800,000 children. The president paused to let those numbers sink in. In homes and schools, and workplaces across human space, people felt the same horror that he had felt when he first heard the news. The Korthak believe that humans are weak because we show mercy to our enemies and protect our young. They think we will surrender rather than fight back. They are wrong. On Mars, factory workers stopped their jobs to listen. On the mining colonies, near Jupiter, families gathered around their radios. On the farming worlds of the Outer Rim, children sat quietly while their parents tried not to cry. I am sending an official warning to the Korthak Empire, President Hayes continued. They will return the bodies of our dead for proper burial. They will withdraw from all human territory. They will never harm human civilians again. If they refuse, they will learn what happens when you threaten humanity's children. After the broadcast ended, something changed across human space. Young men and women who had never thought about joining the military suddenly appeared at recruitment offices. Colonies that had remained neutral in galactic politics began offering resources for the war effort. Scientists who had been working on peaceful projects volunteered to help with military research. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, factory manager Joe Smith converted his entire manufacturing plant to build weapons. My grandson was supposed to visit New Haven next month, he told his workers. Now he's crying every night because his pen pal there is dead. We're going to make sure the Korthak pay for what they did. Dr. Amanda Foster had been working on nanotechnology research at a secret laboratory on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Her work had been theoretical until now, but after seeing the footage from New Haven, she knew exactly how her tiny machines could be used against the Korthak. We've been too careful, she told her research team. We've been afraid of what these technologies might do in the wrong hands, but now we know what happens when we don't use them at all. Meanwhile, Ambassador Claire Mitchell prepared for the most important mission of her career. She was humanity's best diplomat, a woman who had negotiated peace treaties and trade agreements with dozens of alien species. Now she would carry Earth's ultimatum to the heart of the Korthak Empire. They won't listen, Admiral Sullivan warned her. The Korthak don't understand diplomacy. They only understand strength. Ambassador Mitchell smiled grimly. Then it's time. They learned that humans can be very strong when we need to be. As she boarded her ship for the journey to Korthak space, Claire Mitchell carried with her the names of 800,000 children who would never grow up. Their deaths would not be forgotten, and they would not go unavenged. Ambassador Claire Mitchell's ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Morthak system. She stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiance, looking at the massive planet that served as the capital of the Korthak Empire. Captain Steve Rodriguez stood beside her, his hand resting on his weapon. Are you sure about this, Ambassador? Captain Rodriguez asked. We're bringing 5 ships into a system with over 1,000 Korthak warships. If they decide to attack us, we won't make it out alive. Claire nodded. She was a small woman with gray hair who had spent 30 years talking to aliens across the galaxy. She had negotiated with peaceful traders and angry warlords, but she had never delivered an ultimatum like this one. They won't attack us during a diplomatic meeting, she said. The Korthak follow certain rules of war, even if they don't follow rules of mercy. The journey to Morthak had taken 2 weeks. During that time, Claire had studied everything humans knew about Korthak culture and psychology. She knew they respected strength and despised weakness. She knew they believed that showing mercy was the same as showing fear. What she was about to do would either prevent a war or start one that would consume the entire galaxy. The Korthak allowed the human ships to enter orbit around their homeworld. Morthak was a dark planet covered in cities made of black stone and metal. Rivers of lava flowed between the buildings and the air glowed red from the heat. It looked like a world built for war. Supreme War Leader Krexvar waited for the human delegation in the Great Hall of Conquest. He was the largest Korthak that Claire had ever seen, nearly 10 feet tall with scales that looked like black metal armor. Scars covered his face and arms, each one representing a battle he had won. Around him stood dozens of other Korthak leaders. War Leader Vextar was among them, the same alien who had delivered the ultimatum to New Haven. He looked pleased with himself, as if he expected to be rewarded for the massacre he had ordered. Claire walked into the hall with only 2 guards. The Korthak had weapons everywhere, but she kept her hands visible and empty. She wanted them to see that she was not afraid. "I am Ambassador Claire Mitchell, speaking for all of humanity," she announced. "I bring a message from Earth." Supreme War Leader Krexvar looked down at her from his throne. "Humans are weak creatures who speak too much and fight too little. What does your weak species want?" Claire pulled out a recording device and placed it on the floor between them. 3 weeks ago, your forces attacked the human colony of New Haven. You killed nearly 2 million innocent people, including 800,000 children. War Leader Vexitar accomplished his mission perfectly, Krexvar said. New Haven belonged to the Korthak Empire. The humans were invaders. Children are not invaders, Claire replied. They were babies, young kids who had never hurt anyone. Your forces targeted them specifically. Vextar stepped forward, his yellow eyes gleaming with pride. I ordered the destruction of the human breeding facility myself. Young humans grow up to be adult humans. It is more efficient to eliminate the problem before it grows. The other Korthak in the hall made sounds of approval. To them, Vexitar's logic made perfect sense. Claire felt sick listening to them, but she kept her expression calm. Earth demands the following, she said. First, you will return the bodies of our dead for proper burial. Second, you will withdraw from all human territory. Third, you will pay compensation for the damage you caused. Fourth, you will guarantee that Korthak forces will never attack human civilians again. The hall erupted in laughter. Krexvar's amusement was so loud that it echoed off the stone walls. Humans make demands? The Supreme War Leader said when he finally stopped laughing. You have maybe 200 ships. We have 10,000. You control 30 worlds. We control 3,000. What will you do if we refuse your pathetic demands? Claire picked up her recording device and spoke into it clearly. Let the record show that the Korthak Empire has refused Earth's reasonable demands for justice. She looked up at Krexvar. If you will not return our children for burial, if you will not leave human space, if you will not promise to stop killing our people, then humanity will demonstrate why we have survived on a world full of predators for millions of years. Threats? Vexitar snarled. Weak humans making threats? Show us your recordings of the dead children. Show us how your soft hearts break when your young die. Prove to us again how weak you are. Claire felt something cold settle in her stomach. These creatures took pleasure in the murder of children. They were proud of what they had done. They wanted to see videos of human parents crying over their dead kids. You want to see recordings? Claire asked quietly. She activated her device again and played a short video. But instead of showing crying parents or dead children, the video showed something else. It showed human factories working day and night. It showed huge ships being built in secret shipyards. It showed weapons being tested on empty planets. This is what humans do when you kill our children, Claire said. We don't just cry, we prepare. The laughter in the hall died down. Some of the Korthak leaders looked uncertain for the first time. We are giving you 72 hours to meet our demands. Claire continued. After that, you will discover that humans are not as weak as you think. You will learn why we protected our young above everything else. Supreme War Leader Krexvar stood up from his throne. Are you threatening the Korthak Empire, little human? Claire looked directly into his yellow eyes. No, I am promising you what will happen if you ignore this warning. You killed 800,000 human children. Now you get to see what their parents will do about it. She turned and walked out of the hall without waiting for an answer. Behind her, she could hear the Korthak leaders talking in their harsh language, but she did not look back. Captain Rodriguez was waiting for her at the shuttle. How did it go? Exactly as we expected, Claire replied. They refused everything. Now we find out if our scientists have been as clever as they claim. The 72 hours passed without any word from the Korthak Empire. Supreme War Leader Krexvar had dismissed the human ultimatum as the desperate threats of a weak species. He was confident that his 10,000 warships could crush any resistance that humanity might offer. He was wrong. The first sign that something had changed came from the outer edge of Korthak space. Military base Torvak had stood guard over that sector for 200 years. It housed 50,000 Korthak soldiers and controlled a fleet of 300 warships. The base commander had laughed when he received warnings about possible human attacks. The laughter stopped when his sensors detected 12 small human ships approaching at high speed. 12 ships against 300 seemed like a joke, but something was different about these vessels. They moved in patterns that Korthak computers could not predict, and their weapons were unlike anything in the Empire's databases. Captain Steve Rodriguez commanded the lead human ship. His crew was small, only 20 people, but each one was a volunteer who had asked specifically to fight the aliens who killed children. They had trained for months with weapons that most of humanity did not even know existed. Target their power generators, Rodriguez ordered. Dr. Foster says the Yao nanobots need direct contact with Korthak technology to work properly. The human ships fired strange silver projectiles that seemed to dissolve when they hit the Korthak base. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the alien power systems began to fail one by one. The nanobots that Dr. Amanda Foster had designed were eating through Korthak metal and electronics like acid through paper. Within 2 hours, military base Torvak was dead. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of equipment had been destroyed by microscopic machines that the Korthak could not see or understand. The alien soldiers inside the base suffocated when their life support systems failed. The pattern repeated across the outer rim of Korthak space. Small human forces attacked isolated bases and destroyed them completely. The nanobots were programmed to target only Korthak technology, leaving the planets themselves untouched, but making it impossible for the Empire to use them as military bases. Supreme War Leader Krexvar finally understood that humanity was serious when he received reports of 15 military bases going silent in a single day. He sent War Leader Vextar with a fleet of 2,000 ships to find and destroy the human attackers. Vextar found the humans near the edge of the Kelmore system. 12 human ships faced his massive fleet with what looked like certain death. Vextar opened communications with the lead human vessel, expecting to accept their surrender. Human ship, you are surrounded and outnumbered, Vextar announced. Surrender now and we will kill you quickly. Captain Rodriguez appeared on the communication screen. He was a middle-aged man with calm eyes and graying hair. He looked nothing like the terrified colonists that Vextar had slaughtered on New Haven. War Leader Vextar, Rodriguez said, I have a message for you from the children of New Haven. Before Vextar could respond, the human ships disappeared, not destroyed, not retreating, but simply gone as if they had never been there. Vextar's sensors showed empty space where 12 ships had been floating moments before. Then his own ships began to die. The humans had developed stealth technology that made their vessels completely invisible to Korthak sensors. While Vextar's fleet searched for enemies they could not see, the human ships moved among them like ghosts, firing their nanobot weapons at close range. Korthak warships that had conquered dozens of worlds found their weapon systems failing, their engines shutting down, their life support systems breaking apart. The nanobots spread from ship to ship through the fleet's communication networks, turning the Korthak's own technology against them. Vextar watched in horror as his 2,000 ships became 2,000 floating tombs. He managed to send one final message to the Korthak homeworld before his own vessel died around him. "The humans have weapons we cannot fight," he reported. "They are not weak. They are not weak." The attack on Morthak itself came 3 days later. Captain Rodriguez led a fleet of 50 human ships directly to the Korthak capital world. The planet's defenses included 5,000 warships and orbital weapons platforms that could destroy entire fleets. None of it mattered. The nanobots ate through the Korthak defenses like they were made of paper. Weapon platforms that had protected the homeworld for centuries became useless metal floating in space. The mighty Korthak fleet found itself helpless against an enemy they could barely see. Rodriguez landed his troops directly in the capital city. They did not come to destroy the planet or kill civilians. They came for one specific target: the government buildings where the Korthak leadership lived. Supreme War Leader Krexavar was dragged from his throne room by human soldiers. For the first time in his life, the mighty warrior felt fear. These humans moved with the quiet efficiency of professional soldiers, not the desperate panic of victims. "You said humans were weak," Rodriguez told him. "You said we were soft because we protect our children. You were wrong." Dr. Amanda Foster arrived on Morthak with the second wave of human forces. She was a small woman who looked more like a teacher than a warrior, but her nanobots had brought the Korthak Empire to its knees. "We could have destroyed every Korthak world," she told the captured alien leaders. "We could have killed every one of your people the way you killed our children. But we are not like you. We do not murder innocents." Instead, humanity did something that shocked the entire galaxy. They put the Korthak leadership on trial for war crimes. War Leader Vextar, Supreme War Leader Krexvar, and dozens of other military commanders were judged by the same laws that humans use to govern themselves. The trial was broadcast across known space. Alien species that had feared the Korthak for centuries watched as the mighty empire's leaders sat in simple chairs, answering questions about their crimes. 800,000 children, the human judge said to Vextar. "You ordered the murder of 800,000 human children. How do you justify this action?" Vextar looked smaller now, without his armor and weapons. They were future enemies. It was efficient to eliminate them. "Children are not enemies," the judge replied. "They are the future, and you destroyed our future because you were afraid of it." The Korthak Empire did not end, but it changed forever. The species that had ruled through fear learned that there were consequences for their actions. Worlds that had been conquered by the Korthak were given the choice to govern themselves. A memorial was built on the ruins of New Haven. 800,000 names were carved into black stone, each one representing a child who had died far from Earth. Humans came from across the galaxy to visit the memorial and remember what had been lost. Jake Morrison, the former governor of New Haven, stood before the memorial on the anniversary of the massacre. He was an old man now, his hair completely gray, but his eyes were still strong. "They thought we were weak because we loved our children," he said to the crowd gathered there. "They learned that we are strongest when we fight for the ones we love." The message spread across the galaxy. Humanity was not just another species to be conquered. They were protectors, builders, and when necessary, warriors who would cross the stars to defend their young. The children of New Haven had not died in vain. Their sacrifice had taught the galaxy that some things were worth fighting for, and that love could be the most powerful weapon of all.